scared crap out of me. You did your job, and you did it well, sir.
Thank you kindly.
The question I have is, with the nun is obviously a spin-off character from the Conjuring franchise. How was this character chosen? And when you first got the script, when you were going through it, what were some of the ideas that immediately jumped at you?
So when I got the script, obviously I was familiar with The Conjuring 2 and the fact that James had introduced this character, although for not very long, you know. So it was quite a unique situation, I think, to get to make a movie which wasn't a sequel or a remake, but that was of a character that exists in a movie and give them their own story. So it was exciting, and then actually discovering that the story was more of almost its own different genre to the other movies in some ways. It's got more of an adventure, more of a journey, sort of mystery, investigation aspect to it, which I really loved. And there was just, for me, you know, I mean, I look for movies which I can kind of lose myself in, or the idea of just trying to transport you. And it was so nice to see this story taking place in 1952 in Romania. It's sort of a very classic Gothic horror story. It harks back to the movies I grew up watching, the Hammer horror movies and Dracula, and some Italian horror movies. And it just felt like an opportunity to really dive into a place. And when you read certain sort of scenes and set pieces, my sort of excitement bells start ringing. So like, I mean, there's this concept of perpetual adoration, which I'd never heard of, which is almost like 24/7 praying to keep the evil at bay. So I immediately was like, oh, this is going to be in fact, in the script originally, it was sort of mentioned, but wasn't really seen. So it's something which I felt like we really want to do something.
Sure. Now, you kind of made headlines last week when YouTube kind of pulled your trailer because it was too scary. Do you look at that as a badge of honor, or kind of like, how do you look at that?
I mean, it's a really nice, unexpected part of the promotion of this movie. I mean, you can't plan that sort of thing. So, of course, it was. At the same time, I didn't want to upset anyone, and if people genuinely were having a bad time watching a trailer, I mean, then I wouldn't want to offend them. So maybe it should have been taken down. But you know. Yeah, it's a certain badge of honor.
I thought the trailer was brilliant, and it did scare me. I'm not gonna lie, it did have that jump scare. But speaking of jump scares, that's an integral part of any kind of like horror filmmaking. What's your philosophy on that, and how do you execute that technique to keep the audience kind of off balance a little bit?
Yeah, that's just what you're trying to do, is keep the audience off balance. Everyone's become very sophisticated to, you know, horror stories, and you know, you see it's very hard to just try and keep someone unsure of what's about to happen next in a story and in a, you know, a lead up to a scare. And for me, you know, it's a balance of trying to just keep an overall tension within the story and the piece, regardless of whether the scares are going to jump out at you or whether they're kind of, the overall atmosphere just is feeling more and more ominous. And you know, it helps that if you're feeling on edge and you're starting to grip the seats and get a bit sweaty, and you don't know whether, you know, there's going to be a scare or if something's going to come out of the shadows. And then also it's nice to not do that, so that they don't know, and they're like, oh God, I thought something was, and then something comes from another place.
Yeah, that's a great point, because there's a scene in there with Father Burke running through these sheets, and I was the tension.
Right.
But
yeah.
They'll see the movie and find out what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing scene. I really dug that. Now, how early did you get involved into this project? And when you watched The Conjuring 2, were you already starting to think of backstories for the nun?
When I saw The Conjuring 2, I mean, I'm a devoted horror fan, so I've seen all James's movies, and I'd seen The Conjuring 2 at the cinema when it came out. I wasn't thinking, I'm going to make that film.
Sure.
You know, that was a few years ago. But I was definitely aware of the demon nun sort of being quite prominent the way, especially she wasn't in it for very long, but she kind of stole the show in a sense. So when I got the script, I knew the character. I was curious to see where it would go, and was, like I said, excited to see where it went, and felt like it was going in a fresh direction. And it was very much James Wan and Gary Doberman, the writers' intention to take the universe in a slightly different direction, and that was enticing for me.
Now, this movie was shot totally in Romania, everything. I talked to San Diego, or talked with you at San Diego, and you talked about how you kind of blessed sets and some creepy things happened.
I didn't bless them myself.
You didn't do them yourself, yeah. But it happened. Did you experience any creepy things in Romania when you were shooting this?
I did. You know, I had a supernatural experience. There was a few things, you know, that actually something that I think it's been mentioned, but one thing that happened, which was great, was in the courtyard at night in the castle we shot in. We suddenly got a bat flew into the courtyard, a wounded bat or a young bat, and it flew around and couldn't get up. And it was on the ground, and I think it was actually Bonnie Aarons who played the nun, and a visual effects guy that were kind of nurturing this bat, and we all kind of like gradually let it free into the sky, and it flapped away, and it just felt like a kind of Hammer horror movie moment.
Really?
But in a supernatural sense, I had a run-in with a couple of what I assume were kind of Romanian ghosts, for real, in the Mogashoya fortress when we were filming the Corridor of Crosses sequence, when Irene is making her way down towards this door that something lurks behind, and we were shooting in a real Romanian fortress underground, long tunnel in the dark. You know, everything's real. The walls are dripping with slime, and you know, I was based inside a room off the corridor in the darkness, a sealed room. As I entered the room, I saw a couple of guys I thought were sound guys, and it was very dark, low light. I said hello to them, and then I proceeded to watch the sequence that we were shooting, trying quite hard to get a technical thing to work with a camera rotation. And it took a few takes, and it was quite frustrating. And then when I finally got the shot, I was quite elated. I punched the air, and I turned around to sort of see if these two guys had seen the take. And there was no one there.
Oh, man.
No one sitting in the room, no way in or out. And it was a moment which I can only explain genuinely as being some Romanian ghosts. I mean, it was a fortress.
Well, I'm never going to Romania. But congratulations on the film. It's amazing. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Glad
Corin.
you had a good time.
Pleasure.